To be or not to be, that is the question.
So let's talk about Shakespeare. I know, a playwright from over 400 years ago. What could he possibly teach us about our lives, right here, right now? Well, as it turns out, a whole lot. In this explainer, we're going to dive into his work and pull out 5 huge, timeless lessons that are just as relevant today as they were back then. But, okay, let's be real for a second. For a lot of us, Shakespeare can feel, well, a little intimidating, right? The language is tricky, the stories can get complicated, and you're left wondering, why should I even care? And that is a totally fair question. But trust me, once you get past that old-fashioned English, you find this incredible treasure trove of wisdom about what it means to be human. So my goal here is pretty simple. By the end of this, I want you to see exactly how Shakespeare's ideas about things like ambition, love, and betrayal can actually give you a whole new way to look at your own life. Because, and this is the amazing part, the same human dramas he wrote about, they're still happening all around us, every single day. All right, so here's our game plan. First, we'll look at masks, motives, and power. Then, we'll dive into reputation, truth, and love. After that, we'll touch on the final act of life itself. We'll wrap it all up with 5 key takeaways, and then it's your turn to reflect. Sound good? Let's get started. Okay, first up, masks, motives, and power. Shakespeare was absolutely obsessed with this idea of the masks we all wear. You know, the difference between who people seem to be on the outside and what's really going on underneath. You know, if you had to boil down a ton of Shakespeare's plays to one single idea, it would probably be this. Things are almost never what they look like on the surface. He's always pushing us, the audience, to look past the friendly smile, to question the person with the fancy title. And there is no better example of this, I mean none, than the villain Iago from the play Othello. This is a guy who acts like the most loyal, honest friend in the world, all while he's secretly planning to destroy everyone around him. And get this, Iago basically says it himself right here. Knavery's plain face is never seen till used. In other words, you don't see the treachery, the deception, until it's too late, until it's being used against you. It's because he wears this mask of honesty so well that his betrayal is just so completely devastating. It's a huge warning from Shakespeare, right? Judge people by what they do, not just by what they say. So that leads to a big question. Why do people put on these masks in the first place? And for Shakespeare, the answer is often a single, really dangerous thing. Ambition. Specifically, unchecked ambition. When someone wants power so badly that it's all they can think about, well, the truth is usually the first thing to go. And look no further than Macbeth for the perfect example. I mean, this is a textbook case of how it all goes wrong. Macbeth starts out as this celebrated hero, right? But then he hears a prophecy, and it lights a fire under what Shakespeare calls his vaulting ambition. That ambition pushes him to commit murder, and from there, it's just a downward spiral into tyranny, paranoia, and eventually his own complete destruction. It's the ultimate story of how ambition can just completely corrupt someone. And if you want an even more direct warning, here it is. This line comes from Cardinal Wolsey in the play Henry VIII. Now, this was a guy who climbed all the way to the top. He had immense power, and then he lost it all. And it's only after his fall that he gives this advice. He's saying ambition is the sin that got the angels kicked out of heaven. I mean, that's about as stark a warning as you can get. All right, so we've talked about the internal battles, like ambition. Now let's shift gears and look at the external forces that shape our world. We're talking about reputation, the power of truth, and, of course, the messy, complicated business of love. Shakespeare really got that our reputation is, well, it's like currency, isn't it? It's super valuable, but it can also be incredibly fragile. A single rumor, a single lie can just shatter it into a million pieces. But, and this is important, Shakespeare also seemed to believe that in the long run, truth has a way of coming out on top. A lie might win the sprint, but truth wins the marathon. And a perfect case study for this is the character Hero from Much Ado About Nothing. Her story is wild. She's publicly shamed by a horrible lie that just destroys her good name. But then there's this clever plan where she fakes her own death. Now, this sounds dramatic, but what it does is it buys time. Time for the real story, the truth, to finally come to light. And in the end, her honor is restored. It's a powerful idea that even a reputation that seems totally ruined can be brought back by the power of truth.
Now, in the same way that lies can test our reputation, perception can really test love. I think we can all agree love in Shakespeare's plays is never easy. It's never a straight line. It's more like a battlefield, constantly being challenged by things like warring families, social status, or just plain old misunderstandings.
This is a great example from the play All's Well That Ends Well, and it lays out a conflict that's still so relevant. You've got Bertram, this high and mighty nobleman, who completely rejects a woman named Helena. Why? Because she doesn't have the right social title. He's only looking at her status. But then the king steps in, and he argues that it's Helena's inner virtue, her character, that makes her worthy. It really puts the question to us, doesn't it? What's the real basis for love? Is it what's on the outside or what's on the inside?
All right, for our final section, we're going a little deeper. Because after all the drama of ambition and the heartache of love, Shakespeare always brings us back to the biggest, most unavoidable truths of all. That life changes, time passes, and we are all mortal.
You've probably heard the famous line, "All the world's a stage." Well, this timeline comes from that very speech. And it's a pretty humbling way to look at a human life. He says we play these different parts, right? We start as a helpless infant, then a schoolboy, a passionate lover, a soldier, and on, until we reach old age and eventually what he calls mere oblivion. It's a powerful way to remind us that our time in the spotlight is limited. And this quote from Hamlet hits just as hard. He's standing in a graveyard holding a skull, and he has this profound realization: death makes everyone equal. It doesn't matter who you were. He imagines that even the dust of Imperial Caesar, one of the most powerful men who ever lived, could end up being used as clay to plug a hole in a wall to keep the wind out. It's an incredible thought. In the end, it doesn't matter if you're a king or a beggar. We all end up as dust.
Whew, okay, we've gone through a lot of big ideas. So let's take a moment to pause and boil all of this down into 5 core lessons that you can really take with you.
So here they are. Lesson 1. Look beyond what you see on the surface. There's almost always more to the story. 2. Be wary of unchecked ambition. Without morals, it's a destructive force. 3. Your reputation is valuable, but always have faith that the truth will win out in the end. 4. Understand that love isn't a fairy tale. It's a complex, challenging journey. And finally, number 5, accept that life is short and always changing, and that's exactly what makes it so precious.
Okay, so we've walked through these 5 big lessons from Shakespeare. But now, really, the most important part is up to you. It's your turn to think about how all this wisdom from hundreds of years ago still resonates right here, right now.
And I want to leave you with this question to think about. Shakespeare wasn't just writing stories. He was holding up a mirror to all of us. When you look into that mirror, which of these struggles do you see playing out in the world today? Which characters remind you of people you know, or maybe even parts of yourself? I would genuinely love to read your thoughts on this, so please, share them in the comments below.
And that brings us to the end of our look at 5 powerful lessons from William Shakespeare. If you enjoyed this and found it helpful, please consider giving it a like. It really helps. And of course, subscribe for more deep dives into big ideas like this one. As always, thank you so much for your time and for watching.